Welcome, everybody, to this very special episode 96 of the Standing 8 podcast. I'm Aaron Soria from Los Angeles. I'm joined by one of my usual suspects, Stephen Ruiz, out in Dallas, Texas. Today, we have the distinct honor of talking with one of the best active cutman in the fight game. His extensive career in treating fighters from both boxing and MMA spans over 40 years. Fighters have entrusted this man to keep the ringside doctors at bay to fight that one more round. Welcome to the stream, Mr. Jacob Stitch Duran. And by the way, happy belated Veterans Day for your past service in the Air Force. So how are you doing today, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me on. And what's going on with Steve? Steve's like my agent. Whenever I go to Dallas, all right, takes care of me, man, like nobody. It makes me feel important. But no, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Likewise, very humble to have you on. So, my first question takes you back to your humble beginnings. What was that one turning point in your life that made you say, "I want to be a cut man"? Or was it a series of events that organically drew you into that profession?
Yeah, no, you just, you're not born just to be a cut man. I guess growing up, I knew nothing about combat sports. Baseball is what I did all the time. And 1972, I joined the military. In 1974, I always told myself if I went to the Orient, I'd study the martial arts. That was during the Bruce Lee era. And so I walked down to a college to play baseball and was practicing with them and didn't have a car. So I would go to school with friends. And after that, I would hitchhike back 9 miles. So I joined the military. But 1974, they stationed me in Thailand. And there I saw my first Muay Thai fight and started training Taekwondo that they had for the GIs. And then the Koreans left. And then the Thais took over and they kind of transitioned us into both styles into one. So I had my own school of kickboxing and I was a trainer and did it all. And learning to be a cut man was something that I had to learn and got me here. So and a lot of people don't know that I was a trainer before I was a cut man, but I did pads for Mike Tyson. I used to work with Johnny Tapia, and I had my own school of kickboxing and boxers, and so. But now just a cut man.
Right. Now, one of the main things that make you stand out as a cut man is the fatherly bond you establish with these fighters. How do you establish such a profound trust, especially in rounds where your fighter is at his most vulnerable state?
It's funny, Aaron. I just left the gym a while ago. We'll be working with Shane Mosley Jr. in Houston. I think December the 2nd. But we're talking about that, right? That my job is a lot different. I did an interview with Marco Antonio Barrera, a podcast, right? So he asked me the question, just like last week, 2 weeks ago. He goes, "Have you ever had any issues with any fighters?" And I said, "No, I haven't, because I come in under a different position. My job is to take care of you. So, why are you going to mess with me, right?" But, like I told Muhammad Abdullayev, that's not Muhammad Abdullayev, Rashan, that was at the gym as a sparring partner. I said, you guys are all modern day gladiators, but deep inside you're all babies. And my job is to take care of the baby. And that's what I do.
Stephen, you got a question too? I don't want to hog it all up.
This is the quietest I've seen Stephen ever.
No, it's because all of our people are used to hearing from me. So anytime we have somebody of your caliber, I'm just a fly on the wall. But of course, I talk. We've gone to certain things, and man, I talk all the time. But I was gonna say, you mentioned it. That you were heavy into baseball. One of the times you came, you cornered Ugas and Errol Spence that main event at AT&T Stadium.
Yes.
Well, one of the cool things that we got to do, and it definitely goes down in my memoir, is getting to go with you to the baseball game.
Yeah, go see the
Rangers. I was just about to say, you might be good because you went to their stadium.
Oh, you froze up.
In our backyard. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that you must be good luck just because you went to the stadium. We got to watch the Rangers play. Here, 60 some odd years later, they get their first World Series. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. I don't think I had anything to do with it. Good try.
But I did have one good little question there. I said, for me, I ask a lot of people because I've hung out with you a couple times, and you always preach big time. And how vital is it to have the support of your family in boxing, especially when you've been in the game having your legendary career, to have their support in a sport that demands so much?
Man, that's an excellent question. And, all these interviews that I've done through the hundreds of years that I've been doing, nobody's ever asked that question on the other side, right? But it's a very, very vital point. When I made the move to Las Vegas, I've been here 28 years. I used to work for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, and I worked with them for 23 years, and I put in for a job transfer to move to Las Vegas from Oakland, California. And, well, Fairfield, I had school kickboxing in Fairfield, but I worked out of Oakland. But when I got the transfer, the only position was a position lower than where at the status I was at. So I took like a $25,000 cut and pay. Who would do that, right? But my wife supported me. My kids supported me. They knew I had a dream. They knew I was good at what I did. And that was way before MMA. So I made the move and was boxing only. And, everything I've done now I do for my family, Actually, my wife just helped me get on StreamYard with you guys. I'm not the smartest.
So to follow up, very important. The other thing I was going to say was we follow your career as well. We're big fans. You and your daughter are pushing for certification for cutman, so that way the sport is safer and really talented guys able to step into those roles. How has that been going, and any headway in that lane there?
Yeah, actually, it's more my daughter and her group. I'm just getting a call from Ireland right now. And
it's Conor McGregor. He needs you.
Yeah, and it's Walter. So he threw me off. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The with your daughter being involved in the certifications for the cutman, and definitely has a good background on somebody that knows what they should be doing.
Yeah, I actually, it's more my daughter and her group that are working on that. We're working on the same thing is to make boxing safer, not only for boxing, all combat sports. But what my daughter and her group did is they had the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commission, or some of the state commissions, that whenever we apply for a license, which is every year, you got to take this one test on CTE, dementia pugilistica. And the questions are not for you to flunk, they're for you to understand. A very simple question like, does sparring cause CTE? Well, yeah, it does. Drug and alcohol, this and that. So these questions, you go through them and then you get your license. So at least you know a little bit more about these guys, when they're taking those shots. But they've also now, with the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions, they now, when they make decisions regarding fighters, there's also a panel of 10 retired boxers and active boxers that are in the group making the decisions for the fighters, which should have been done a long time ago. Me on my side, of course, I spoke up about the Reebok deal and, taking money away from fighters, and made me the face of, fair practices, but growing up as a farm worker during the Cesar Chavez era, my parents fought for the rights. So I had to do the same when they asked me, right? So, but yeah, there's a struggle. I about 23 years ago, in fact, I'll send you guys a video when we're done. About 23 years ago, I put a film together called Boxer's Nightmare. And I did it with this young guy, John Bartonhouse, that just graduated from the American Film Institute. He was like 23 years old. And we did it on a very minimal budget. And we never really did nothing with it. So John passed away about 6 months ago, 7, 8 months ago. And I hadn't seen his film and haven't seen his film in 20 years. So I looked at it as a tribute to him. And I realized that the struggles that is going on now, we talked about them 23 years ago with legends, guys that are all, some are dead. So when it came to coaches, Emmanuel Stewart, he's passed away. We interviewed him, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Joe Cortez, Richard Steele, Mills Lane referees, and like I say, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Fernando Vargas, Mike Tyson, Rocky Gannon that we interviewed, these guys, Joe Lewis's daughter, Joyce Barrow. And so I looked at this film and I thought, damn, nothing's been done. And, I've still been fighting for the rights. So I'm going to try to do something with it. The interviews there are great. Nobody's gotten what I got. What I want to do, because now it affects MMA, the dementia, the unfair practices, the contracts, everything that is happening in boxing now is affecting MMA. So I want to rejuvenate it and get current interviews with current fighters and trainers, like I did with Emmanuel Stewart and these guys, right? And call it Boxer's Nightmare 23 years later. And so, yeah, I'll give you Mike Tyson. I'll let you listen to a quick one of the little things that he says, and how do we get this program going, right? How do we get pensions? How do we get insurance? How do we get fair practices? Here's what Mike Tyson said. I hope you guys could hear it. If not, then I'll send it to you guys.
This is what fighters should do.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Automatic take a percentage, boom. But it's not necessarily for us. Not for us. It's for the less we gotta do. We're not gonna get messed up. We look pretty good now. So I would be in that for the other guys. We got to take care of it. Then I focus that big time executive to take care of us, watch them like that. So we should take a percentage of our money for those guys.
Super.
And that's really cool because, like you just listed off, legendary names. Every single person is the highest of the highest when it comes to boxing. But what history has shown us is anytime stuff like that happens, it's because all these guys like yourself, you're so ahead of your time. So when you guys were talking about that way back then, and all that stuff's coming to fruition now, it's like somebody that, like a Mozart, that creates a piece, and maybe it's not as appreciated at that moment, but you have something special that's going to affect, just like Mike Tyson said, not for us, the guys later down the road. So right. I think that's what makes people like yourself such high character individuals, such high character gentlemen, because like you said, you grew up in that era. Yeah. So that's been ingrained in your DNA since you were a kid. So when you see wrong is being done, nobody else is going to say something, I'm going to say something. Does that make me the most popular guy at times? Probably not. But you know what that does? It sets the foundation. It sets the payment for other guys to say, hey, we're going to pick up or what these guys did. We're going to pick up what Stitch Duran did. We're going to pick up what everybody did, because fair is fair. And that's how it should be, especially when these guys are risking their lives and guys like yourself are doing so much to keep them in the fight. Also knowing when they have more, also knowing I got to get you out because I care for you. There'll be another fight. There'll be one more round. And I know you talk about that in your book and stuff like that, about caring for these fighters, wrapping hands just on the feel of it. That's all stuff that you get over a distinguished, decorated career. Not, hey, I'm just going to do this. It's a job. When I feel like when our fans of boxing, fans of yours, when they see guys like yourself, man, that guy's not just Stitch Duran, legendary cutman. That guy's a solid individual everywhere. I've been in Vegas with you. We've walked around. I pretended to be your security, and you get mobbed everywhere you go. We're at Aaron, true story. We're in Vegas. I'm walking with him, and guys are like, "Do you mind, sir, if I get a photo with Stitch?" I'm like, "You got to ask him."
And he was saying this shit like it was real, man.
But Stitch, every time I've been with him in every city, Vegas, Dallas, San Antonio, at Techport Arena with Bam, that last fight, Ugas, Spence, this guy is a true man of the people. Everybody I've ever seen tap on his shoulder. Hey, let's get the photo. Hey, get your mom, get the dad. Every time. I know that because sometimes I'm taking the photo for these people. So it's just, for me, there's no one above. You're very much the toast of boxing and what you do, not just in boxing, but also just a solid individual. And that's the kind of stuff that our fans appreciate. And that's why you have such a loyal following.
Appreciate it. Let me just show you one. I'll give you one more. This is Joyce Barrow, the daughter of Joe Lewis, right? And this is how we end the film. and then at the end, me and Mike Tyson. So just listen to the end, but she said it all, right? And
When you build a business, any other business, you build it to last. You put health insurance, you put pension plans together. Every other major sport has these things. Why not boxing? Why not boxing?
that's how it ends.
Yeah.
But listen to Mike Tyson at the end. I'm trying to get more questions, but. Yeah, he wouldn't let me answer. He wanted to say it's the best sport in the world. But that's how strong this film is. And Steve, you really said it best, and I appreciate it. But yeah, so that's going to be, we have to take care of these guys. Guys all over the world. And I've noticed I've been out of the UFC for 8-9 years. And guys I used to work with before, now, as I see them now, a lot of them have the slurred speech and everything that goes with dementia. So it's affecting all combat sports.
How to me, that's hard because I was just in California and you were too for Alexis Rocha and Santillan. And Rocha's a great friend of mine, How hard is it sometimes when you have the relationship with these fighters and maybe it doesn't go their way that night? For me, oh man, I felt sick. My stomach hurt for these guys because I'm not in the gym with them. I'm not sweating in the gym with them. I'm not running those miles, but their pain, what goes into this, they give these everything, warriors. So when you see some of that, like you said, some of these guys you used to work with in MMA or boxing, how does that pull at your heartstrings? You being that father figure.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Just to see them, and I mean, I got a great friend right now that I showed a video. I don't give names out, but people that know him, he don't even recognize me. I cried when I went to go visit him, and he's done. His brain is gone.
And that's why you let us know anything we could do as far as promoting it and anything. We love to do stuff like that because that's a passion project for you, but that's also something that needs to be done for boxers.
Yeah, it has to be done. Yeah, it has to be, just like I say, and I've done it with other podcasts, and I'll send you the video. You guys look at it.
Yeah,
let's talk about every subject. And there's subjects that, that we're educating is what we're doing through. And this is all a tribute to my the young man, John Barnhouse. Because basically we did it on a zero budget. We were interviewing Chuck Bodak, and then we got Chuck Bodak, Miguel Diaz for cutman, right? So we got the best of the best of the best of the best. But we're interviewing Chuck Bodak in Tustin, California, and he lives in a train, like a caboose, in the back of a museum that Marconi owns. Marconi is the guy from Herbalife. So we're filming in his museum of all these badass cars, and he says, "Where are you guys staying at?" And we're staying at some old shitty motel, right? So he took us to the embassy suite. He got us a room. He gave us he wrote me out a $10,000 check, and that's what we used to do the editing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can I say stuff like that is why, man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall just a lot of times with you because you probably have to
You are a fly on the wall. Hell.
Yeah, that's true. I think you probably have to have one of the best Rolodexes probably in boxing because you've worked with the who's who of everyone, but not just boxing, mixed martial arts. Nate Diaz, when you came down for Jake Paul, Nate Diaz, MVP Promotions, and with what he does for Amanda Seriano and the Puerto Rico and places like that. I have one question on that, especially since you just told that awesome story, which going in, that guy seeing your hunger, writing you a check for $10,000 on something like you said that's zero budget. That's somebody that sees you and sees the talent and sees where you're going. So who else would you say played a pivotal and influential part early in your career? I'm sure there's a different guys, but are there some where you can look back and be like, man, without this guy, there's no Stitch Duran?
Actually, it was the parents, my mom and dad, because we come from nothing, right? But the respect that mention that so and all that. But the respect that my parents always gave everybody, and the respect of because we were farm workers, and my dad was a mayador, he was a foreman, so he would always hire the workers to come work the crops with us, and so they would always give back. People would come in from Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Mexico, and to pick the crops, and my parents would help them find housing and all that. So that's always been our nature. So yeah, them, But as an idol, Roberto Clemente, baseball player, used to play for the Pirates, Puerto Rican.
Somewhat famous. I said, yeah, he's somewhat famous.
Yeah. So that was my idol. That's who I looked up to.
Nice.
Now, Stitch, this is a more technical question. Now, from my general understanding, outside looking in, when treating a heavy blood gash, I know just from general knowledge that you first have to coagulate the blood to soften it, and then you have to constrict the blood flow. Is there, of course, there's more into that. If there's any error in what I said, can you further explain on that?
Yeah, you close up the blood vessels before any coagulation. And it's funny, I was at the gym today, and my job is to educate. So here's what I was telling these guys. I tell these young fighters, I said, look, if you're looking for a cut man, number one, if he puts a swab in his mouth or in his ear, get another cut man. That shit's dirty. But ask him what the adrenaline chloride 1000 does. That's the medication that we use on the cuts. Well, the first question is a coagulant. I mean, the first answer. Oh, what stops the bleeding? Yeah, but how? Well, it's coagulant. So if he says it's a coagulant, get another cut man because he's wrong. Right? The adrenaline chloride 1000 that we use is by prescription only. It's a vessel constrictor. So if you notice when they get cut, I'll squeeze. And the theory there is you take all the little blood that's out of the little vessels, then you put the swab there, and they absorbs into the veins and it closes it. That's the mechanics. So if the guy tells you it's coagulant, you don't know. But you were talking about, Steve, none of us have to be certified to be called pros. None of us. I'm good at what I do, but I did it through trial and error at the expense of fighters. And I had one guy when I was learning to be a cut man when I lived in Fairfield. There was a boxing event in Richmond, California. Bone Crusher Smith fought Marvis Frazier, Joe Frazier's son. And this guy did a good job on cuts. And after the fight, I said, hey, man, I'm trying to learn to be a cut man. Can you tell me what you did? He said, fuck you. I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me. He walked away. I felt about this big, bro. But I said, I'm never going to be like him. So now I go back. I've done this interview hundreds of times. Never mentioned his name once. Not important. But now I go back to Oakland with Andre Ward and me, and now we've kind of gotten no higher popularity, and he forgot about it. But now him and his son want to take a picture with me.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So, yeah.
So I did have a question, kind of following up on that one. You're hungry. You're wanting to learn, and I've seen other videos where you go up to the cut man when the fighters are leaving, and maybe people don't catch it, but since I'm a fan of yours, people are coming out, and you walk up to the cut man and congratulate him. I think one I saw was Errol Spence and Bud Crawford, and you went up to Errol Spence's cut man, and their party's leaving, their fight crew is leaving. You stop him, shake his hand, and I'm sure you said something to the effect of "Good job." Yeah. But that's got to be so uplifting because cut men, they take losses too in a way where it's like, man, my guy didn't win. So in that how do you bounce back from that? And also, what advice would you give to, say, a young man that's like, hey, I might not be the greatest fighter, but I have a passion for fighting, and I'd love to be a coach. Like, you've been a trainer. Like, people don't know you held pads, you've done all that. So it's carried over to your knowledge of the game of, hey, this guy's got a little bit more. This guy, I think we should get him out of there. What advice would you give to a young man that wants to follow in Stitch Duran's footsteps?
I get those requests weekly, all the time. And I'll tell them, look, here's what you got to do, is you got to spend hours and days and weeks and months and years in the gym, being a fighter, working with the fighters, understand their mind game and learn everything. And you learn you start wrapping hands, try to, learn how to wrap hands with them, with anybody, and do it at your own cost. And, hopefully down the road, have enough confidence and put you in the corner so you can wrap their hands. And then during that time, you're learning how to work cuts. So you just don't walk into it. You know, I've been doing this for 30 something years and you just can't walk into it. I've had doctors that say, Stitch, I'm good at what I do, but I'm not good at what you do, you know, because basically you got 45, 50 seconds.
Oh yeah. Could you have told yourself 30 years ago that you'd be where you're at today in Creed movies? Being, you know, you were playing yourself. It's the movie Creed, and literally they're casting you as you. We need you. You're that much of a popular figure, so distinguished in the corner that to bring accurate representation to this movie, we need Stitch Duran, the cutman, in the corner. What is that like?
Well, it's all the films. The first one that I did was Play It to the Bone with Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas. I was Woody's cutman, so you got the best cutman in the business. And so, you know, I kind of play myself, right? And then I did Ocean's 11 when Lewis fought Vladimir Klitschko when they robbed the casino. I was with Klitschko, and I was with him after that, 8 years with him, right? And then I did Balboa when Rocky fought his last fight. I was in the corner with Antonio Tarver. I did Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James, Salma Hayek, Henry
Bas Rutten.
Yeah, Bas Rutten, Here Comes the Boom, you know, and then Creed 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, it blows my mind every day, you know, just to be recognized. I got a pension from SAG, you know. I knew nothing. I still know nothing about film, but I get a thing that says, "Hey, man, you qualified for your pension." And, you know, you now get monthly checks.
Do Edward James Olmos checks go to you too sometimes on accident?
me and Edward James almost get that all the time, And there's a video that's out there where I used to co-host MMA Junkie Radio at the Mandalay Bay with George and Goals Garcia. Great MMA show. So he came in as a guest, and I'm there, and he's talking that, yeah, you know, people sometimes they Stitch. They confuse me for Stitch. But for me, they do all the time.
No. Go ahead, Aaron.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Oh no, I was gonna say.
Oh, Aaron.
Yeah.
Come on.
You mentioned Vladimir Klitschko, and he was one of your most high-profile fighters you worked with, and you worked with them at a time where he partnered with, as you said, Emmanuel Stewart. Yeah. Give us your first-hand experience being part of that dynamic of that partnership of Emmanuel Stewart and Vladimir Klitschko. And as we all know, Emmanuel Stewart was very instrumental in Klitschko's 9.5-year title reign.
Good, my man. That's good. Good point. I'm going to give you some behind-the-scenes shit. All right, so 1991, I say 91, Vitaly says, well, I say 90, I say 91, 92, Vitaly says 91. Anyway, whatever. When the Soviet Union first broke, we took a team of professional boxers and kickboxers to Kiev to fight them. And these guys, it was the first professional fights in the Ukraine. And I had Mark Longo from Denver that I took as a kickboxer. But then the Klitschkos were young guys, but they were already stars within themselves, right? So going fast forward, years later, they come and they train at Top Rank at first with well, they were here. So I told them how I met them, and then I showed them the poster, and that was our connection, right? So when the movie Creed Ocean's 11 came out, I was already, so I ended up being his cutman, right? And then so me and a friend are at the MGM getting ready to fight HBO fights. And Emmanuel Stewart's commentating, right? So he's walking by and we're watching people walk in. You know how we do that, us, Steve? And then Emmanuel Stewart goes, Stitch, I want to talk to you about Vladimir. And he goes like this. So I look at my buddy. I said, did you see what I saw? Well, the next day he called and says, Vladimir wants you to be his cutman. And so the first fight that I worked with him, he had just come back from losing his world title. So it was against DeVero Williamson, outdoor Caesars Palace in Las Vegas here. So he gets that type of cut that like Forrest Griffith got, big old cut. When you pop that big vein, it's going to bleed forever, you know, because it's too big. You can't really coagulate it, as you would say, or construct the vessels, just too big. And so I knew he was winning the fight. He got dropped. He won the first 3 rounds, and then he got dropped in the 4th with a flash knockdown but he was still ahead by 1 round. And in the 5th round, he gets that unintentional headbutt. So when he sits down, the doctor says, "What do you think, Stitch?" And I've worked on those cuts before in the UFC, but I opened it. So that's pretty bad. She stopped the fight, went to the scorecards. He ended up winning the fight, and then became world champion after that. So, Steve, you were talking about Dallas when during the filming of Creed, Michael B. Jordan would always come to me for advice on authenticity. So the question he asked was, who should give away the WBC belt? So I explained to him the history of Jose Suleiman, Mexico City, very prestigious belt. He passed away. His son carries that now. And so I saw Mauricio in Dallas, and I told him the story. And you guys know the Ukrainians are fighting Russia. Vitaly is the mayor of Kiev. Vladimir is kind of like the spokesperson. And so they're heavy. So Mauricio says, let's take a picture and let's send it to the brothers. Well, Vladimir sent this. I'm going to let you guys listen to this, man. Vladimir sent me this, and you're asking Aaron about the relationship, but listen to this, bro.
My two favorite men, especially Stitch, with whom I spent so much time talking, and he actually saved my career on a lot of different stages. If Stitch wouldn't be in my corner, I would not make the record of 12 years being a champion. So that's so great to see you both, and Stitch is the man.
Wow.
Can't wait for that.
Very,
Powerful.
very profound compliments.
Powerful, because, for that moment, I took him out of the war and put him into a sport that he loved, which is boxing. And then me. So and how this comes to be is his last fight with Anthony Joshua in Wembley Stadium. I didn't get there till Thursday night because my daughter Carla had just got married in the island of Crete. So Vladimir was staying at an apartment, and I see him at the weigh-ins, and I'm talking to him and Vitaly and catching up and just talking about the basics of the fight, what's going to happen, this and that. And finally, at the end, I put my hand on him. I said, look, don't worry about nothing. I'll take care of you like you're my son, because I know the night before they can't sleep. And I leave. And so here I am. I'm putting the final Vaseline on him. We're about this far apart, right before Michael Buffer does the announcements. It's 90,000 crazy Brits. They sound like there's 150 of them. It's so loud, right?
Yeah.
And we're about this far, and he looks at me and says, "You could call me son." Bro, that didn't get me, but I knew I had gotten into his mind. And then the last time I saw him was like 3 months later in Germany. And very simply, I said, Vladimir, at that moment, why? He says, Stitch, there's very few people I trust in my life. You were one of them. Oh, I don't get no better than that.
When you're endorsed like that, I guess that's a main reason you're so beloved, is people know it's not just a sport for you. It's a lifestyle. It's your branding. It's your lifestyle's work, your life's work.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand my position, and any position in the game of combat sports is number one is taking care of the fighter, and that's our job. That's our only job. Well, to teach and to take care of them. Right?
But what I really like about that is you have stories for days with the guys. The guys are just complimenting you. Like I said, walk with you through Vegas, and you're like, a magnet to all these fighters during fight week. But what I think what's really cool is, for me, what's important for me in my life and my kids is a legacy. And when you can look at your life, from where you started, where you're at, where you're going, it's just crazy that if you stopped now, you have that legacy of taking care of the fighters in the ring, but then also through this movie that you're doing, taking care of fighters out of the ring. So
right.
When boxers, MMA fighters, Muay Thai, where you got your beginnings, they can look back and be like, man, why are we where we're at today? It's guys like yourself and guys that you partnered up with in that passion project of, hey, we don't have money on it right now, but we're do this. So that, from a fight fan, as a fan of yours, just as much compliments as I can give on behalf of all of us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And this father or the brotherly thing, it came from Lyoto Machida in the UFC when he fought Rashad Evans. Rashad was the champion. And if you remember, Lyoto's father is very Japanese, very shogun, very proud man, right? Lyoto won the fight, right? But I had worked all of Lyoto's fights, even in Japan and all that. So I go in the dressing room after the fights to congratulate him. And his father's sitting like this, very proud, man. And so I said, Lyoto, congratulations and all that. He looks at me in front of his father. He says, Stish, in the ring, you are my father. And the father just kind of goes, yeah, take care of my son. So that's what we do.
Man, that's an awesome story.
It's crazy. Yeah.
You know, Stitch, you said today and also in other interviews, what you do is a lot of it's trial and error theory. Yeah. Earlier in your career as a cutman, when you didn't have that rep yet, how was that like? Because you had to prove yourself. So what was the day to day like as a cutman early on in your career especially when you didn't have that reputation yet?
Yeah, no, it's funny because you're in the dressing room and you're kind of looking at the guy over there, doing what he does, and you kind of because there was nobody would give instruction, nobody would tell you what to do, right? So it was, but a lot of the information that I got it from the ringside doctors that I work with, and especially the ones in Las Vegas because they were the best of the best of the best. Very simple. Hold on a second. Let me get this. Where's that? That is what the end swell. Very simple, right? Mm-hmm. You'll see guys that will go like this, like they put makeup on you, and that's totally wrong. What you do when you have swelling, it's because you have blood that's accumulating. And how many times you get cut and then you put your finger on your cut, and a minute later, it's not bleeding. It coagulates, right? So blood coagulates itself. All right. So you help it, but in doing that, cold direct pressure, and this is a bunch of bullshit. But people don't know.
Is it hard watching fights where sometimes you're looking at maybe a corner man that's early on? And is that something that gets at you, or you're like,
yes,
learn? You
don't have to finish that statement. Yes, even my kids know the proper applications, and my daughter called, Dad, this guy's this and that. This guy has a swab in his mouth, and guy's this, and they're using the same bloody towel, and we look at all that.
You mentioned too, you have your own branding of cut gear. The one where where it says Stitch right across. It's very cool. Very cool.
So I have that. Got my own tape. The wrist wrap. If you notice, so you can put the swabs here instead of putting them in your mouth and all that. But that's just done more, not even for the economics. It's more to make them available to these guys. And cutman for hire, Juan Ramirez. He's the only one that carries my stuff because he's a good guy. I want to help him build his business. Plus, everything that he sells are for top of the line stuff for cutmen and trainers. So, cutman for hire supplies. They have everything we need, man. So I created that. I'm working on some other projects, of course. The documentary based off my book, From the Fields to the Garden. That's we're getting to the editing stages and all that. So hopefully that'll be good. And
how exciting is that?
Huh?
How exciting is that when you have such a cool project like that and hey, we're getting pretty close to it being finished? And
it's pretty awesome. And and I've just 3 days ago, I'll kind of give you guys the exclusive on this. All right, I just did a firm handshake. They want to do a cannabis Stitch premium line, and I said, I'm with you. I'm game. So we shook hands 3 days ago, and motions are in motion, and just got a response from it's one of the top growing companies. So why not?
Are you gonna maybe be shelved right next to Mike Tyson stuff?
I don't know. Maybe I'll be more Mike Tyson. But and it's funny because everything's based on marketing, right? Our whole life is based on. But being that I work for RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company, I know that there's how you present a brand. That's what I did. Winston, Salem's, Camels, all these cigarettes. There's a formula to getting it out to the public, and that's having the proper name, Stitch Premium, shows quality, right? And then having a proper product, and then having a tagline. And that's for me, it's second nature, you know.
Oh
And,
yeah.
so the people that I'm working with are super good. And there's another company that they created a cream for the cuts, the healing process, and it's called the Cut Cream by Stitch. And now we're teaming up and trying to make some big things, but they work. You know, when these guys call me, they, you know, because of my name and because I work as a cut man. So if you're gonna have a product for expediting the healing process, why not? So when they called me, I said, well, what proof source do you have? Well, that's why we called you. It's all right. Well, I'm working I'm doing the bare knuckle fights at that time in Florida with Dave Feldman. And come with me, man, because they all get cut. And they sew them up in the dressing room. And, you know, then you take a picture of them, you give them the cream, you know, a week later, they send you the results, and results have been tremendous. So I'm working with that project also. And so, yeah, I've been blessed, man, you know.
You know,
go ahead.
You know, Sis Duran, I'm going on a different tangent. I'm going to mention this fight, the Marcus Brown versus the Badu Jack fight in 2018, where Badu Jack suffered that vertical gash in the 7th round. Are those one of those fights you say to yourself, "Damn, I wish I was in this corner for Badu Jack"? And also, what was your reaction as you saw that, especially during the break times, as they treated that cut?
It was horrible. It was horrible, and that's that kind of cut with Vladimir Klitschko. When I had the doctor stop, because you're not going to stop the bleeding. But and after that, I started working with Badu Jack. But the team choked big time. Number one, the cut man did a horrible job. The thing I noticed is he would always put that bloody swab in his mouth, kind of like wanted to be identified as a cut man. But in reality, they should have did what I did with Vladimir Klitschko, because this fight here with Badu Jack was to see who was going to be the number one contender to fight for a world title. So it was a big, big, important fight. That was an unintentional headbutt. So being that, and I felt so sorry because he's shaking the blood out of his eyes, and they should have stopped the fight. It would have gone to the scorecards. Might would have lost, but you can negotiate a rematch because it was unintentional. They didn't do that. He ended up losing the fight. So a good point.
Another fight I want to reference. Well, not really a fight, but an occurrence. Well, a missed opportunity, I guess. With you were this close to working with Floyd Mayweather Jr. And he and I'm just summarizing his quote. He said that had you been in his corner, you would have lessened his hand injuries. Now, when I heard that from him, I was thinking, wow, if that was the case, I personally would think that he would have gotten more knockout wins after the Victor Ortiz fight. Your thoughts on that I guess missed opportunity to work with Floyd Mayweather in the latter third part of his career?
Well, you know, that's the first time I've heard the quote that you said. I've never heard it before. But he
said something along the lines of, had you been in his corner, the injuries on his hand would be less severe.
So what happened in that staging like this era is he was having problems with his hands, of course. Well, this one cut man, he's going through a trial and error. So I walk into the gym, Top Rank Gym, me and a friend, and he's wrapping Floyd's hands, and you know Floyd's going like this, and so I'm telling my buddy it's too tight. I can just see right off the bat. So I'm watching him, and he finishes wrapping his hands, and at that time James Prince was his manager, and Floyd and James went into the dressing room, and they're coming back and they're cutting him off. So at that point, I would have said, Floyd, I'll wrap your hands. You know, I knew I would have got the job, but out of respect to the cut man, that's a piece of shit, just out of respect to him, I didn't say nothing. And then, you know, thank God they got Rafael was next in line. You know, days later, he got the assignment and he started working with Floyd. So it was God sent for him. But no, I've never heard that comment, but it's nice to hear from him. And I was with his dad and his uncle today, right before I came here. I told you I was in the gym, right? So I was there with Floyd Sr. and Jeff Mayweather. And I told you what happened is they got the Mayweather experience. And this young kid, it's his birthday from Sydney, Australia. And him and his parents are down here. So they came to the gym and I wrapped his hands, and Floyd Sr. and Jeff Mayweather worked him out in pads. So, I have my own tape. So I cut him off and I taped him for him, and he ended up with cast. So that was that experience. And yeah, I just left the gym right before I got logged on with you.
Isn't
Awesome
so
stuff.
crazy? Isn't that so crazy that he mentions that quote and you're leaving, his family pretty much, but also what kind of ties it all?
Hold on, it's funny you say that because I worked the last fights, Ugas, when he fought here, and Floyd's in the dressing room, right? And I said, Floyd, I've known you for all these years, and we've never taken a picture together. So I got a picture with Floyd. Yeah, I've known him when he first got out of the amateurs and he moved to Vegas, and his uncle Roger was training him, and say I've known him. I said I've never taken a picture with you, but yeah, I'd never heard that quote, and didn't know, but that was nice. Oh, so I'm sorry. I had to say.
No. We're here for you. But like I was saying, what's kind of cool is in every story you have, again, we foreshadowed it. Right is right, wrong is wrong. You're a high character guy. When it benefits you and when it does, right there, you said, hey, I'm a high character guy. This is who I've been since I've been a kid, what my father and mother instilled in me. Yes, I could go over there and take that job. It's right for the picking. Right. But I'm going to let that guy, have that moment, because you could have been there, been the name. Hey, I'm about to do what that guy did to me and make this guy feel so small. But you know what? That's not the right thing to do. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing. I always want to. I reference my kids all the time. I want to. Hey, if your father says he's a high character guy, then every single time it needs to be the same result. And that's what you showed in that moment, which is so awesome.
But I never forget, just like that guy that told me, F you, I'm going to take it to my grave, right? So months, years, probably years later, Layla Ali's fighting, Vladimir Klitschko's fighting at the Garden. And Layla Ali's on the undercard, and her manager asked me to wrap her hands. And of course, who's the cut man but this guy? So I'm wrapping, and I didn't even charge. I didn't talk about money or nothing. I just to wrap Layla's hands in front of him, and he's walking around back and forth like a tiger, and just kind of looking. And so that was my redemption. And so yeah, sometimes you just got to do it too. But it's funny because I walk into the gym, and Floyd Sr., this is way back, he comes up to me and says, Stitch, he said, what is it between you and beep beep? I said, I don't like the guy. I said, well, I don't respect him. And I don't. Well, he's over there. He's telling the Bay brothers, Mickey and Cortez Bay, that blacks how to work with blacks and Mexicans how to work with Mexicans. And I said, I get Duran because he raps a good hand. He works. I've never seen you rap. So Floyd Sr.'s telling me. So I go to the gym one day and he's there and we're watching the fights together side by side and not making eye contact. I said, hey. Somebody said that you said that blacks how to work with blacks and Mexicans how to work with Mexicans. And I leave. So that way I start messing with his mind, right? And the next day I go back to the gym and I'm talking to some friends and he taps me on the shoulder, Stitch, I need to talk to you. At that point, I knew I got him. I knew he didn't sleep that night before. That was my redemption.
So you're very much into the mental warfare too.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, but it also works because it's those words coming from you which make people pause for cause. Hey, Stitch. So it's coming from a very high intelligent place when you're in the corner telling, like Aaron referenced, those young guys that are like your sons. Hey, you got this, son. You can do this. Or, whatever you say, these words will always resonate in their minds, like Lyoto Machida. Sure. When he's in there, hey, Stitch said X, Y, Z. And so that's what it is. There's no, I could take his words to the bank, and it's crazy because in this day and age, not everybody can do that. So that's another testament to yourself.
No, like Shane Mosley Jr. was saying, he said, man, not only do I have the best guy that raps hands, but I got one of my best friends working with me, and that was nice, and so that was pretty cool. And in my documentary for the Fields of the Garden, we interviewed Shane and his wife. And what had happened in that scenario is when I worked with Shane when he fought Gabe Rosado, his wife was pregnant. She's in the dressing room and don't really know him and all that. But I always take sandwiches with me. I'm a veteran, right? So I gave her half my sandwich. She was, but weeks later, after he won the fight, a couple weeks later, I see him in the gym, and he comes up to me. He says, "Hey, my wife and I were talking about you on how good." She says how comfortable she felt knowing that I was there to take care of her husband. He goes, and I felt the same thing. So I thought about it, and I said, nobody's really gotten the opinion of the wife, right? And so I called the director of the film. I said, "Look, would you mind if we interviewed Shane and his wife to get the opinion of what a fighter feels like and what a wife feels like?" And we got that in the documentary.
One that sticks in my mind is when Miguel Cotto had lost and his wife was there consoling him, and famous behind the scenes where he tells her, she's consoling him, and he says, "This is all I know." But her pain is that's her husband. He got beat. He's hurting. His face is very busted up. I think it might have been even after a Margarito fight. But he was saying, like, this is what I know. And so he's doing what he has to do to provide for his family. And she, to her testament, is being such a solid wife and being a rock to her husband. Lose or draw, she's still there. So that's a great observation to say, hey, let's get the wife's point of view, because your wife has had to have your back years and years and years to hold down the fort to say, hey, I got the house, I got the kids while you're in Dallas, while you're in the Philippines, while you're in Dubai, Vegas. Man, I think your passport's probably been stamped more than anything, but that's such a big thing when you have such a solid team, a solid family back home, so that it allows you to master your craft and continue.
Yeah, you're right.
Before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on this Thursday's fight between Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos. From the casual fans perspective, not much is known about him, but I know him to have power and technical ability. And Shakur Stevenson, if he wins, he becomes a three-division world champion. How do you see those two guys matching up this Thursday?
Well, I work with Shakira, man. So why are you asking me that?
Yeah.
No, you know what?
That's why I asked you.
Yeah, no, Shakir's a super, super kid, man. And I don't know the other guy, but but Shakir just he's like Andre Ward, right? And I worked all of Andre's fights throughout his career except two, because I was already doing a UFC. But yeah, Shakir just, he's kind of a horse of a different color. He's a kid. If I was in a bar and I was drunk, I'd pick a fight with him. He looks like that. He don't even look like a fighter, but he can fight like Andre Ward. So we'll see. I'll be working with him, and I'm working with Hobson Conceicao. He's fighting Navarrete. So yeah, that should be fun.
Awesome.
These are part of and Steve, you've been there, part of the Top Rank cards. So what happened is during the COVID, they called me and Mike Basil to see if they'd be interested in being house cutmen, right? And I live 20 minutes from the MGM. So yeah, of course I jumped on it. They did 16 shows, in 8 weeks, 2 shows a week. But when it finished, they liked the program so much that they kept us. And that's why I'm part of the fixtures with Top Rank, which is a great, great program, because the last fights we did in Lake Tahoe, I worked 5 fights, I racked 4 fighters' hands. Same with Basil, we worked 5 fights. So these are guys that would not normally have a good cut man or a good guy to wrap their hands. So Top Rank pays us to take care of these guys. And I think, we got to give Top Rank all the credit in the world. They're the only ones in boxing that are doing it. This program, I created that when I was with the UFC. Me and Leon Tabs, the original cut man from UFC #1, he came on board when the Fertittas bought UFC, and Burt Watson. So the 3 of us put this program together where we take care of the fighters. But give Dana White credit on that, because he realized that MMA guys didn't know how to wrap hands. They didn't know how to work cuts. So he brought in me and Leon Tabs, boxing guys. So
I think one of the cool things I've seen before on one of the boxing cards is you come out in a certain fighter's colors in their vest. That fight ends. You've done your job. a fight or two later, Stitch is coming out again, and another guy's. So you're definitely putting in that work.
Yeah, it's not even a job. Come on, it's an adventure, man. Just to be in my position and to see the wonders of what goes on behind the scenes, the fans, and can't beat it.
Well, thank you so much. Whatever Aaron's got, but from me, every time I said, anytime you're in Texas or Dallas, I'll come stalk you in San Antonio, Dallas. It don't matter. I'm always there. A big fan, big supporter. Anything I can always do, I always got your back.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, that's it for episode 96 of the Standing Podcast. I'm Aaron Soria from Los Angeles. With me is Stephen Ruiz. Again, thank you, Mr. Stitch Duran. It's been a pleasure talking with you. All the best, especially with your documentary that's coming up. Any last words you want to give out before we end it tonight?
Nah, just support Cutman for Hire Supplies. One's a good guy, and I can sell my tape, my stuff at all these other bigger outlets, right? But we got to help each other out, man, and especially we're all Raza.
We humbly appreciate it.
Yeah, do it. But I guess Aaron, send me your email. I'll send you the documentary. Go ahead and send it to Steve and take a look at it. It's an hour and 8 minutes. Like I say, it was done by a guy that I knew this much about film, and a guy that knew about this much about maybe a little bit more film than me, because he went to school. But that was really his first big challenge, is to do this film. And I mean, Mills Lane would just give you some. And Doc Brodus. Did you guys see the George Foreman movie?
Oh yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, it was very good. I give props. So the Forrest Whitaker played Doc Brodus. All right, and big, but Doc Brodus is a real small man. I probably have his last interview, and he's the first guy that I get on the show. I can show you how to write this and that, but without heart. Anyway, check it out. You guys let me know what you think. Aaron, thanks for having me on. Steve, all the best. I told Gilbert I was talking to you, and he says cool. So keep it up. Say hi to your wife. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much. God bless.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Stitch Duran.
Adios.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching. This is episode 96. We're out. Peace.